Hi, my name is Amanda Denman, and I'm going to talk about how I incorporated technology in my third grade classroom for us to successfully create our own poems. Some of the standards that I decided to focus on were RL5, referring to parts of a poem, especially the stanza, a few writing standards which will help support their writing, as well as multiple speaking and listening standards. The part that I loved about this project the most was seeing the students really work together collaboratively. They had to work together strategically in groups to create one product. And it was interesting to see the dynamic of the group and how they worked together to really pull it off and to make it work. Before coming to third grade, it wasn't necessary for students to understand the elements of a poem. As a whole group lesson, I pulled up the McGraw-Hill website and showed the students this short little poem as well as the 3 different elements that relate to the poem. As a class, we went through what a line was, what a stanza was, and what a rhyme was, and defined it in terms that a third grader would be. Next, the students were given their first activity sheet. I broke the students off into pairs and strategically placed them into pairs where there was a high student and a lower student. This way the students were able to ask each other questions, and if one student had trouble reading whatever was on the page or whatever was on the web page, then the other student, the higher student, could help that lower student out. The students were given one iPad to share as a pair and were directed to scan the QR code that was on their first activity sheet. It would bring them to this Quizlet interactive web page. On this interactive web page, it has vocabulary terms, their definitions, a picture, as well as an audio play of the definition as well. This was great for my ELL students and my special ed students who have the read aloud accommodation. This is also when I saw the partners really working together. When one student didn't understand one of the words in the definition, they would ask the other student to help them define what does this word mean, or I don't know what that means. And you really saw the students working together to really understand what that new vocabulary term meant. Once they had a good understanding of the new vocabulary terms, they were then to go to the next recording sheet, which was on the back of the activity sheet, and complete this activity. They could either complete it independently or they could work together with their partner. I saw a lot of children try to complete the activity independently at first, but the words were still pretty challenging, so then I saw them start relying on their partner for help once the activity started progressing. So the students had to then come up with their own definition or their own example of an alliteration, their own example of words that rhyme. They had to come up with the example of the word that filled in the blank, then an example of a line, and then as a bonus, they had to come up with an example of an idiom, which is a word that we studied a few weeks ago. As I was walking around monitoring the students' progress, I started realizing that the children were having a really hard time understanding the term alliteration. So that's whenever I had to stop and address the whole class and really try to break it down and tell them these are like tongue twisters. And once I started giving them examples of common tongue twisters that they have heard of, Peter Piper pecked a pick of pickled peppers, then that's when it all started clicking. They started coming up with alliterations with their own names. They started coming up with alliterations of their partners' names, and so that's whenever I was able to really reflect and realize these students don't truly understand the definition of these vocabulary terms yet. The second day is when we started the second activity. This is when I encountered some troubleshooting errors. A few of the iPads that I had checked out from the school's library had a QR scanner on it that kept crashing. So it started stressing the students out. I saw some of the students try to troubleshoot and fix the error themselves by exiting out, closing the program, and then trying to signing back in. However, there is something wrong with the QR scanner that they are attempting to go back to. So I had to walk over to a few of the pairs and locate a different QR reader And it was just a quick fix once I was able to help them locate the new QR scanner. The second activity, the students, still in the same pairs as the day before, scanned the QR code, and it took them to a website that had a ton of funny poems. This was very high interest for the students because they were very funny, and the students were able to either work independently on a poem that they wanted to work on by themselves, or they could work together in a pair. They were then to complete this recording sheet that went along with the poem of their choice. Again, they could either work on the same poem or they could choose to work on two different poems. Once they had the information completed on the recording sheet, they would then go to the app Lino and enter in their information on the sticky notes. They would need to create a title sticky, as well as who the author was, how many stanzas the poem included, how many lines, as well as a list of rhyming words. The students have used this app before in reading groups, so this was not something that was new or challenging to the students. On the third day, I split the students into 5 small groups consisting of various performance levels. So you had students that were performing on the lower level, on the on-grade level, and then above grade level, all working together in the group. Each student was required to create a 5-line stanza about the animal that their group decides on. Again, this is when the collaboration really took hold. The students worked together to come up with the one animal that their group was going to write about. Some students wanted to write about a different animal than the rest of the students in their group, and so it was up to them to work together to figure out what their final animal was going to be about. Their challenge was to have 1 line of alliteration in their poem. Now, not all students accepted this challenge, and not all students were required to do this. This was just a challenge that some of the higher students accepted, as well as some of the lower and on grade level students really tried to do as well. Once they have edited and reviewed their rough draft of their stanza, they could then begin their final copy. Their final copy was to be done on a white sheet of copy paper and include an illustration of the animal that they are writing about. On day 4, the students split back up into their groups, and by this time, most of the students were done with their rough draft as well as their final copy. They were then to practice the order in which they were going to share their stanzas to make their poems sound correct. What I love seeing the students do is evaluate each other's stanzas to see how well it fit in the flow of the poem. The students really had to analyze each other's stanzas to figure out, so-and-so's poem needed to come at the end because of this reason, this reason, this reason, or so-and-so's poem needs to come at the beginning because of this reason, this reason, this reason. Once I felt that the students were pretty comfortable in the order in which they were going to share their poem, I then showed the students the app Shadow Puppet. I was able to use a dongle and project it on my interactive whiteboard, and so this was a large projection of my iPad screen, so all students in the class could see what was going on the iPad screen, what to click, how to click, where to click, and everything like that. So I showed them the process of how to take the picture of their final copy, and then how to go in, select all those pictures, and then record their speaking voices while they're speaking their stanzas. I did let each of the groups go out in the hallway and record since it was quieter in the hallway. The problem that I ran into, though, was when classes were dismissing, the hallways got really noisy, and it kind of flustered some of the students, so they would then get a little stressed out and want to have to record their poems over again. And at one point, a group had to record their poems 7-8 times because of just multiple different reasons. And so I think that next time that I do this, I need to find a quiet room or a different room instead of a hallway for them to record their final poem. Once they were done recording their product and they were able to listen to their product, the students talked about what they liked about their final recording and what they didn't like about their final recording, and if it met their standards as a group. If the entire group agreed that it was a quality presentation, then we would upload it to YouTube and share it on my personal It's Learning page. Now, the It's Learning page can be shared with parents and students to see. This is the interface of It's Learning, and all students and parents who have an email address have access to the It's Learning page. I created a separate box that has our animal poems in there, and they can easily click on the poem of their choice, or they can click on all of them.
Tigers are rough, it makes them look tough. Tigers are big, they can eat a pig. They are striped. Tigers are fast, tigers are tough. Tigers are strong, tigers are rough. Tigers are big. Tigers are scary, they're ordinary, they're big, they're heavy. Tigers live in trouble. El tigre es un animal peludo que vive en la selva. Es peludo y es anaranjado y tiene rayas negras en la cola grande y dientes grandes, patas, orejas y es el más grande del mundo y come animales. Five. Tigers right, they bite time. Tigers are left, tigers are tough. Tigers are black and white. Tigers are real, tigers are teal. Tigers have stripes. There are many types. Bye, DJ, Esther, Justin, Jocelyn, Jaden.
On day 5, the students had an assessment over the elements of the poem. Overall, this lesson went extremely well. The students were engaged the entire time, and they were begging to know when they were going to use the app Shadow Puppet again. The principal came in to do her TEKS observation while I was giving this lesson, and she was impressed by the engagement of the students as well as the implementation of the technology. This lesson really taught me that I need to provide an environment for my students to take risks and to not be afraid to make mistakes. It was really easy for the students to shut down when their app wasn't working, or it's really easy for students to get frustrated when they don't understand how technology works or how an application works. But it's my job as a teacher to cultivate this environment where it's okay to make mistakes, that it's okay to go back and learn from your mistakes. Learning is about taking risks, and that's what we did with this lesson. Before this lesson, I had never worked with Shadow Puppet either, so it was trial and error between my students and I as well. We were both learning about this app together. Next time when I decide to do this lesson, I think that I want to dedicate more time to the revise and edit process of this lesson. I want the students to really take time to focus on their capitalization and punctuation, as well as the organization of their stanza. I want them to make sure that it is neat and in their best handwriting, since it is a final product that they will be recording. I also need to make sure that the steps on how to navigate Shadow Puppet is somehow listed on a handout or written on the board, especially for my ELL students, as a reference to constantly go back to. The students and I both love this lesson, and I'm excited about incorporating it into my lessons in the future.